storytelling on screen. Hello everybody, welcome to the final episode of the Icon series of the Game Changers podcast. My name is Quinn Segis and it's a privilege and pleasure to be here with you as usual. My next guest has acted in blockbuster films, but more importantly, he's a Saint Lucian making a difference where he is. His name is Alister Albert, and I can't wait for you to hear his amazing story. Yo, Alister, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good, Quinn. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. First of all, like I said, off camera, thank you so much for coming on. I know that you are a very busy man, so that I know that this time that you've taken really means a lot to me. So thank you so much for coming on, man.
No problem, man. It's a good conversation we're about to have, so I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So let's get straight into it, though. Tell my audience who you are from your own perspective.
Ooh, that's yeah. That should be simple, but there's so much to it. Well, Alister Albert, I am a guy from Castries, Saint Lucia, living up Sunbuilt. If anyone knows where Sunbuilt is, not the hardware store.
Yes.
Peter side, right up the hill. That's why I played basketball and I have the fellas used to say I have a lot of air because I used to climb a lot of them hills. Every day after school, I walking up them hills, so my legs were really strong. But yes, young guy from Sunbuilt, Castries, went to RC, Saint Lucia's RC Boys School, then went over to St. Mary's College. Always kind of seen as a really quiet guy, always to myself, do my own thing. Really into sports, but I think that just kind of carried on into my adulthood, just kind of really quiet, do my own thing, and tried to be as ambitious as I could and try to get myself involved in quite a lot of different areas. So I'm still very much that little kid from up on the hill, just trying to make my way, really. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Interestingly, I'm from Cedars, so yes, I am.
Cool.
Yes, I am. So, two neighbors kind of speaking it.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So, you gave a general perception of yourself, but I do know that you are an actor.
Yes.
So, let's speak about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm very interested. How did you get into the theater or acting realm?
Right. And it all started in Saint Lucia for me. And it's something that I didn't really think about as much at the time. In Saint Lucia, whilst I was at St. Mary's College, I was part of, I'll start even before that. Whilst I was at St. Lucia's RC Boys Primary School, I was very involved in performance, but not acting in that sense. I was, you go to school and you learn how to play the recorder. So I was one of these guys playing the recorder at school. We did little concerts at RC, Christmas concerts and everything. And so, I got a little taste of, being able to perform in that sort of way. We had, I was part of the choir, really early on. That didn't last. And don't ask me to sing. It's not going to be great. But, I kind of did performance from then. But when I got into St. Mary's College, I, was part of a group that used to help the Mighty Pep. We were part of the artistic crew. So we worked very closely with, Luigi Santoma, who was Dunstan Santoma's son. And he did a lot of the art presentation for the Mighty Pep. And we also were part of the crew that did his stage acting. So whenever, he sang his songs, whatever the songs might be, of course, it's really hard, heavy hitting social commentary, with, the little comedy interspersed in there. We did a lot of the acting whilst he sang. So that was my introduction to being on stage as well, acting wise, as small as that was. So Rohan Nubo, Nigel Francis, Mr. Rohan Sion, all these guys, this was our crew. And I really enjoyed it, being on stage then, thousands of people on the Mindufila Park, watching us, do our thing, with the Calypso Monarch stuff. That was my introduction to stage acting. And then when I moved over to the UK, I was 21 years old. It was around 2005, thereabouts. I graduated from university, and then I ended up being a cast member for the London 2012 Olympics. I was one of the cast members for that opening ceremony. And that was one of the things that, I did. And after I was part of that experience, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I'd love to actually do more of this. And that kind of set me on that path, looking for an agent, getting put forward for different shows, short films, independent films, that sort of stuff. And that's kind of how I got into it.
Wow, interesting. That sounds like a serious journey.
Yeah, big time.
All right. So then coming up in the acting scene, as somebody from an island, a small island in the Caribbean, what are some of the biggest challenges then you would have faced coming up as an actor from Saint Lucia in particular?
I think the challenges for me existed more so when I was younger and on island. Whilst I was at St. Mary's College and like even in my primary school career, I was always very enamored by performance, like I said. So, I did the little stuff at RC Boys, and of course the little stuff that we did was at St. Mary's College. And I'd always liked and thought of doing acting as something, doing it a little more. But back home, back then at that time, it wasn't something you really took seriously. It's just something you just do on the side. You just enjoy it. You're just part of a crew and you do it when that time comes. I was never part of a drama club or anything, but I always liked the experience of being on stage and everything. And I think there was a mentality back home, and I think that's one of the main challenges. I think a societal mentality when it came to that sort of career or career path back then. I'm not sure what it is now. I'm not on island as much, and I see the creatives are doing so much more on island now. So it's probably a different perception of it right now. But back then, I think societally and what people thought about what a career should be. Of course, you want the lawyers, you want the doctors. We're big tourism country, so you probably want people in the tourism industry, agriculture, and all that sort of stuff. And saying that you wanted to be an actor back home is not something I think anyone was prepared to really hear or take you seriously about. My mom, not to make her feel bad in any sort of way, but my mom at the time being very practical and realistic in her mind. I remember really early on, I was telling her, I'd love to do acting. I think that's actually really cool. And I remember at the time, she just said like to me, just kind of, not this, well, I suppose dismissively, but not really thinking too hard about it. And I think she said to me something like, it's the rich white people who do that. You're from Saint Lucia, try to, I suppose stay in your lane in that sort of way. This is not really what we do, or that road is going to be tough, sort of thing. I don't think she necessarily wanted to dampen my dreams where that's concerned, but she was just being a practical, realistic mother. That was just part of what you would expect societally in that regard. The second thing I think, which is a major challenge as well, again, at that time, I could only speak from my experience from back then. It was, I think, the structures in St. Lucia, governmental structures, financial structures, didn't allow for that sort of investment in someone who wanted to do that sort of thing. So what I mean by that is, I actually wanted to do a film degree, film studies, performance studies, drama, something. That's what I would have wanted to do going to university. But at the time, I'm not sure what it is now, like I said, but there was something called a government priority list. So when you go to Bank of St. Lucia and you're asking for a student loan to go overseas, your course had to be on a government priority list. So again, law, medicine, tourism, agriculture, those sorts of conventional jobs were on that priority list. If you put through an application saying you wanted to do film studies, they'd be like, no, this is not on our priority list. You're not going to get funded. And I think that for sure definitely dampens my idea of what I could be. Because, they set limits. They're just those preset limits that are even set from the higher ups, from the government saying that, no, this is not really what we're about, sort of thing. And it was really tough because, I always thought that I had a really creative streak in me. And I think I wanted to carry that through professionally. But I had to think practically, just like my mom said. This is not what you'd expect someone to do. And I ended up doing a business degree. I ended up doing international business, coming up to the University of Hull, where I was in the UK, and that's what it was. So I think the challenges are really people's mindsets. You know, how they really thought about it, creative industries at that time. Not really sure what it is now, but of course there is a bigger acceptance of it now that I've noticed. And societal, governmentally, financial structures and everything, student loans, that was a major challenge. I think those things definitely need to change. And I think that was the challenges that I faced at my time.
For sure. And these challenges still do exist, but you are correct. I guess our mindset is changing a bit in regards to that, and I'm happy that it is. But we do need to do a lot more work in that regard. And you're correct. You're correct. We need to elevate our mindset because globalization has become a thing, and Caribbean talent. I've always said that we are not wanting for talent in the Caribbean. We have some really strong talent in the Caribbean, and it's very important to foster that talent.
Definitely. Definitely. I totally wholeheartedly agree with you there. I think when you look throughout the whole region, some of the things that we produce as a region, you know, starting from all the way in the top and at the top of the island chain, when you think about Jamaica and what was produced in Jamaica, of course, you think music, dancehall, reggae, that sort of stuff, but there are quite a lot of big time actors and film producers and everything from Jamaica. And you go down throughout the whole the island chain, all the way down to Trinidad. You got, you know, quite a lot of people who are very steeped in culture and creativity. And, you know, we embrace it. I think we do really good with, you know, when people have kind of made a name for themselves and become popular, we continue to prop them up because they are the popular thing. They're the name that kind of goes around. But we also need to continue to make way for, you know, the youth coming up, you know, to foster that talent. And once they show that desire, you know, have those structures and clubs and different things in place to try to get those children the opportunities to kind of just nurture that talent even further. So definitely.
For sure. For sure. So I see that we're getting somewhere, but we still have a lot of work to do. Now, I need some context from you though, because growing up as a young son built, there must have been something in your childhood, maybe if you think back, that triggered something in you and said, hey, this creative field is my calling. Can you think back to maybe one thing or a couple of things?
Wow. Couple of things. Two things really stand out for me, and I think I've kind of used those even to this day to try to create paths and opportunities for myself. And it's that's kind of what opened the doors for me to do some of the stuff that I do. Acting wise, I think one of the things that kind of made me feel like, you know, acting was something I'd love to do that I was really enamored by it. I remember I used to watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air religiously. You know, that old time sitcom, you know, everyone in the 90s watched that and just totally enjoyed Will Smith, Carlton, you know, Uncle Phil, and everyone just kind of doing their thing on TV. And of course, we have our very own Saint Lucian Joseph Marcel, Jeffrey the Butler, in that film. And when I found out he was Saint Lucian, you know, that was like, oh, wow. So you can actually come from Saint Lucia and do this. You know, so he was the first person that I saw that made me realize or think to myself that, you know, this is something that actually can be done if you're given the opportunity or you kind of align yourself the correct way. And hard work, of course, hard work is a big thing in all of this. Putting yourself in the position to work hard to kind of get to that point. So he was definitely one of the main triggers for me that kind of made me think like, you know, I'd love to be like him one day, sort of thing, and kind of got those creative juices flowing. The second thing for me, I was always kind of a gifted writer, kind of. I was always really good at writing. You go home, they tell you to write a composition, and I write, quite a big one, quite a long, lengthy one. I still to this day kind of get in trouble for writing too much or writing a little bit too much in depth with different things. But it was something I think that was really good for me because it allowed me to be able to express myself and show my creativity with words, wordplay, and putting things together, constructing stories and being able to tell a story, or tell, something just as it is, basically. So I think these two things, that dream of wanting to be like Jeffrey the Butler, to be like Joseph Marcel, kind of be on stage and do that sort of stuff. And my writing creative flair was something that I think I wanted to hone and kind of continue and do more for myself. So as I progressed through St. Mary's College, Sir Arthur Lewis, and at university, I kind of got opportunities to kind of show my writing capabilities, and I kind of took that further when I graduated. So these were the two things I think that stood out for me. But if to really answer this question and kind of get what you're really looking for, I think Joseph Marcel, seeing him on screen, realizing and getting to know he was actually Saint Lucian, and getting to meet him actually in UK was something that I was like, wow, that's awesome. This is some guy that I watched on TV for years, and he's respected, revered for what he does on film and on stage, and I kind of wanted to follow in that path.
Beautiful. Yes, and I've seen for many creatives like yourself that there's always somebody, right? There's somebody that's a muse that they follow. Or even if they don't exactly follow that person inspires them to do something for their own selves. And for you, it was Joseph Marcel. And like I said, every creative that I speak to, there is this one person that propels them into that. For sure. Now, you spoke about writing. That was very interesting to me. And then I want to speak to you about preparation for scenes that you would partake in. The fact that you are a writer, does that play any role in your preparation for scene?
Not specifically. I wouldn't say, it's the bedrock of what I do. It's preparation wise, but I think having that writing capability and being able to explain certain things or explore certain things in certain way with word allows you to probably interpret things in a certain way. And when I prepare for scenes, when I get, my agents used to send me, scripts for different things that they want me to go out and audition for. One of the things that they teach you in any acting school that you go to now, I've never been to a traditional acting school. I didn't follow the path. Like I said, I didn't get a scholarship or funding to do a acting degree. But, I did some little classes here and there and did different things to kind of skill myself up where that's concerned. And they tell you really, all the time, it's not just the words that you see on a script. You're trying to understand the character, understand subtext, try to understand the things that are being said that are actually not on the paper, and trying to understand how that fits within that character's mindsets, what role they're playing in that plot, in that scene, and kind of being able to magnify and manifest that character live from the words you see. And I think being a writer, being able to understand, sentence structure, emphasis, with the use of punctuation and all that sort of stuff, you could kind of tell where things are, you're being really directed by the words and how it's structured and as to how you should, voice a character and do the scene. It really helps you with your emotion and everything as well. So actually, yeah, I suppose being a writer and being able to understand, that sentence structure and paragraph structure, script writing and that sort of stuff, it really does help. But I've never looked at it like that before, to be totally honest with you. I've always really concentrated on the character and trying to think of how I could kind of use emotions and my experiences to bring that to life. But yeah, my writing, coming to think of it now, has had a really big part to play in how I've understood characters that I've had to deal with and go out and do it put it on camera.
Beautiful. And I want to also ask another question about your creative process. I know that some actors employ what we call method acting. So they stay in character throughout the day, even when they're interacting with everyday people. Do you employ that? What is your preparation in that regard like?
Yeah. Method acting is it's huge, and it's one of the techniques that I was trained on really early, that I use and I continue to use in anything that I do. I think it's some people could go really extreme. You hear examples of Benedict Cumberbatch, and who's that other guy? Daniel Day-Lewis,
Yes.
Marlon Brando, all these guys who were really great method actors who would stay in characters even when they went home. They continue to embody that character throughout the time they're doing their filming, to make sure that it just, the repetition is there. So when they get on set, they could just turn it on, or they don't even need to turn it on. They just continue to just be.
Yeah.
I haven't gone that deep. Usually when I get off set, we wrap for the day. That's kind of it. But I have, one of the acting sessions that I went to, there's a guy called a trainer called Brian Timoney. And I went to one of his method acting boot camps, they call it. And he kind of puts you through the paces of trying to understand method acting and putting yourself, really deeply into a character. So you did a lot of different exercises and training where you kind of had to embody an animal, think about how an animal will do different things, and the voices and the voices, the sounds, the movement, and everything that you would do. Because it's like we say, the writing is one thing, but you have to think about the subtext and everything that sits behind that character. So if someone looks at you and tells you, you're playing character X, and that guy is a lion, he is fierce, he is on the prowl, you have to try to understand, where that comes from, and how to be able to, make that characterization come through in life. And, that method acting boot camp that I went to, it was really important for me to be able to understand, how to be able to channel certain experiences and emotions into your character. One thing I would say as well is just life experience really helps. And I think that's why you find a lot of people who end up in acting really later on in life as well. After you kind of gone through a couple of years and you kind of gone through a few things, heartaches, losing your job, losing a house, accidents, people passing away, etc. There's a lot of personal experiences that you could draw on to kind of bring a character to life, because you've actually experienced it, and that kind of creates authenticity. So method acting is something I've always used in something as much as I can. If I haven't experienced maybe something directly a character has gone through, I would still try my best to think about what it would feel like for that person, and try to use that as the fuel to kind of energize that character and manifest that. So yeah, definitely, method acting is something that I definitely I swear by. And anyone who's looking to go into acting, I'd say definitely look that up. See what those guys have done. Daniel Day-Lewis, Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, all these old actors, who have been, who are the names, the top names, Denzel Washington, those guys use method acting, and it's something that, it's definitely something to replicate, to be good at it.
Interesting. So then I guess a natural follow-up will be, is it then hard sometimes to come out of a role emotionally? Like, you become the character so much so that it kind of changes who you are a little bit.
It that happens, and it can be hard depending on what kind of scenes you're doing, what the character is, what the role is, and everything. You hear so many people, so many actors sometimes go into these sorts of roles, and when they come out, they need therapy, because they need to try to get professional help to separate themselves from that role and return to real life. I haven't dealt with that specifically, but there are times sometimes where you leave set and you still carry that with you. But for me, a lot of the time when I leave set and I feel like, okay, I nailed it, I leave it there. I'm usually more excited about nailing it than thinking about, the emotion that comes with that role. So I've always been able to separate where that's concerned. But that is a really good question, because some people actually do deal with some of that the circumstances that come with embodying a role really intensely, and that kind of messing with the head, needing therapy, probably taking breaks for extended periods of time to kind of get past certain things. And that kind of is part of the territory for certain roles, especially those blockbuster roles where people are paying millions of dollars to kind of put, those blockbuster films out for us to enjoy. These actors take it so seriously, putting their bodies and their minds through the rigors to make sure it's as authentic as possible. So, whilst I haven't really experienced it in that sort of way, I can attest to, how difficult it can be to separate yourself from that role, and kind of get back into normal life. So yeah, that's definitely a thing.
For sure. And I'm seeing, again, like you said, the importance of mental health and understanding, where your job ends and where your person begins.
Definitely. That's the thing. And that's a separation, of life. I think in all aspects, all walks of life, all jobs, some people, need to be that lion in a boardroom, in a business sense. You need to be that guy who could close the deal and be as cutthroat or whatever it is to get certain things done, to keep your company's efficiencies and profits up. You need to probably command a certain level of respect and demeanor. And sometimes I'm sure a lot of business people could tell you, you go home and you kind of pass that energy on to family and different people, and it can become a problem. So acting is not really the only, sphere where that sort of thing can affect you. We could see it in all different sorts of industries where people kind of are who they are or embody some sort of character or persona to kind of get through their jobs. And mental health definitely is a big thing, and people need to be very mindful of that and be able to understand, the different audiences that they're around to deal with that.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm moving on to a segment of a Game Changers interview. That is my favorite segment. It's called the Quick Hitters. So this element is rapid fire questions. You answer them as quickly as possible. It's a good thing that you drank some water.
I'll take some more. Yeah.
Right? So answer as quickly as possible. And these will be more oriented to Alister Albert, the individual, rather than Alister Albert, the actor.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough?
Sounds good.
Okay, good. My first question to you, and this one might be a little bit difficult, but I'll see how you do.
Okay.
The question is, who is your hero?
Wow. I'll say my mom. Very quickly, my mom. I've seen her go through quite a lot of different things. She's done quite a lot to put the food on the table for us as a family, my two older sisters and myself, and I've always wanted to try to do as best as I can to please and make her proud. So my mom is definitely my hero, straight up.
Beautiful. Second question. What type of music do you like to listen to?
Dancehall all day, every day. I grew up in the Capleton, Beanie Man, Sizzler era. That Bounty Killer. That's my era. To this day, that don't ask me about any song that's on the radio now. I will tell you about Romy from Beanie Man in the 1990s. That's me. That's my era. That's where my playlist kind of sticks to be honest. So dancehall is my go-to.
Got you. Final quick is a question. Who would you like to see on this podcast?
Ooh. Wow. In a creative sense or just generally?
It doesn't matter.
Well, I did an interview with Julian Alfred. I think she's the talk of the town for Saint Lucia right now, and she is a game changer. I think her name came straight to mind because she is literally a game changer for Saint Lucia in terms of the recognition, the eyes that she's brought to the country. And I think it's a perfect person with the name of what your podcast is, for what she's doing for Saint Lucia. She's definitely changing the game and changing, lots of people's perspectives of Saint Lucia. So I think Julian Alfred, I'll just go straight to her as a quick answer.
For sure. And I agree with that 100%. You must have been like the fifth person to say Julian Alfred.
Yeah, it's an easy answer. Of course, rapid fire. You try not to think too much. I don't want to, put too much silence in the interview. But yeah, she's been remarkable. She's been, someone that has inspired and will continue to inspire quite a few people on Ireland for quite some time. Or people not even on Ireland. There was an interview she did on Sky News over here in the UK, and she went to a school, and this young girl was crying her eyes out, with meeting Julian. So, I think she inspires, and she is literally someone who could change quite a lot of lives for us in Saint Lucia.
For sure. Yeah, Juju is our girl.
That's
and
it.
we love her, man.
That's it.
For sure. All right, bro. So we're going on to the back end of the interview. There is a lot of talk as to what roles black actors, particularly black men, can play. There's the whole talk of, should a black man wear a dress? Should a black man, or can a black man play Bond, as in James Bond? My question to you is there a boundary for you? And what helps determine that?
Absolutely no boundary. There should never be a boundary, especially creatively. The creative arts are about expanding boundaries. There shouldn't be any parameters or limits set in the creative industries. So black people should have just every opportunity as white people do, or any other race do, for any sort of role. It's interesting that you raised the James Bond question. One of the first films that I was in, although I was an extra, I didn't really have a speaking role in that one. But the first blockbuster film I was in was James Bond Spectre. And I was on set with Daniel Craig. And seeing him do what he does was really interesting. Really cool, really, that was definitely one of a defining moment for me in terms of being on a Hollywood blockbuster set here in the UK, at Pinewood Studios. And seeing what he does, of course, he kind of created quite a persona for that role, and he fit that character perfectly. When you think of Idris Elba or any other person, all the different people that we have out there, who could be potential Bonds in the future, these guys are just as capable to do it. There's a television series over here in the UK called Doctor Who. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a BBC production, sci-fi, scientific sort of stuff going on, these time travel adventures and everything. That had always been a traditional white role. Over the last year, I've done 2 interviews with the BBC or BBC Radio, where we were discussing the new addition to that franchise, where a guy called Shuti Gatwa, who is a black guy from African descent, who now is the Doctor. He is Doctor Who. And that created so much of a furor, so much of a uproar, because, who is this black guy taking on this role of Doctor Who? It's always been traditional and white. And, he's brought such a different edge to it. And he's done quite a really good job with the series that this first series that he's been in. And I think by all accounts, it has been a success for what he's been able to do. So in terms of that kind of question, I don't think we should have any boundaries in what we should do. We are in a more tolerable society now. There are quite a lot of different things. Your first part of, should a black guy wear a dress? If that is what they want to do, go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. I will not be wearing a dress ever on screen. That's just not what I would do. But if that is something that they're able to do as part of a role, whether it be comedy or something that is just part of their character, it's their prerogative. And once it kind of comes across perfectly for that role and for that film, hey, that's what it needs. So I have no problems with it whatsoever, and how Black people should get the opportunities to kind of play, huge roles. And I, as a Black actor from the island of Saint Lucia, with my accent, with my dreadlocks, I don't want to be pigeonholed into just, the gangster on the block, because of how I look or how I sound, because I'm from the Caribbean. I want to be able to do different things as well. So if I were to say that I think we should be pigeonholed into some sort of stuff, I'm pigeonholing myself. So definitely, sure. I wouldn't want that for anyone. And I think we have shown that we are totally capable. And there are different things that we could do, loads of different roles, loads of different things, star leading roles. I would want that for myself one day. So I definitely hope, we could continue to see that progress moving forward.
Beautiful. Well said. And I like that it's balanced, It's not,
definitely.
You're not saying that they have to do everything, but you're saying that they can do everything.
Yeah, we definitely can. I think what kind of ends up determining that a lot is the casting directors and the producers of films. What actors, and especially young actors, need to realize, casting directors and producers of films usually have an idea of what they want in their head. You could come in and smash an interview and say, and you, not an interview, an audition, and be, awesome, your best audition ever done. But something might just be off, or that's totally different from what that casting director had in mind, and you will not get chosen for the job. That has happened to me loads of times. I could tell you quite some interesting stories where that's concerned. But it's something that you can't control as well. So it's usually really based on what the casting director and producer wants to put out on screen. Some people are a lot more open than others to different ideas, or totally changing what they had in mind and wanting a Black guy with dreads to be James Bond. Who knows? So, some people might be open to that. So it really depends on which production you're going for, what the casting director has in mind, what the director wants to do, and the producer. And once you could bring yourself and kind of just do what the character needs to do, there's no reason why you shouldn't get a role. So yeah, there's a lot of factors at play, where some that you could control and some you can't. But, the point is, I think definitely there should be no boundaries for anyone who wants to do whatever role that they want to do.
Beautiful. Second to last question. What are some of the valuable lessons that you've learned, whether it be on set or on stage, that you think every young, not just a young actor, but young individual should learn?
There are a few things to keep in mind. Acting, it's not something you just kind of walk up on stage and do. There is a lot of preparation. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of patience involved. I will actually reference, and I could probably speak really closely about, one of our really famed and popular groups back home, Checker Pesh, the Checker Pesh group back home, who do their shows and are touring all over the place. My sister is one of the cast members of Checker Pesh, Stephanie Latoya Elcock. And she does a brilliant job on that. And, as an actor, I could speak to her and I could tell, although she does a lot of stage work, I tend to do more film. But, it's no different in terms of the preparation and the rehearsals that are required. So patience and hard work is absolutely key. If you don't have patience and you're not willing to be told, cut, do that again, cut, change the scene, change your tone, cut, walk this way. If you're not willing to take direction, acting is not for you, whether it be stage or film. So patience is a huge, huge thing. I think if you don't have that within you, you're probably going to fail where that's concerned, because there are a lot of people who could do things in one take, but you could do it in one take, but then they'll want to take 10 different views and angles of you, and you need to be able to do it again and replicate it. So patience and being able to stay in character is key. The second thing I think people need to think about, young actors, is, everyone, once you do get a role, and even whilst you're auditioning for a role, everyone wants to see you succeed. No one wants to see you come on set, waste their time, and be crap. Everyone is pulling for you to give a good performance. All the people the guy who holds the boom, the guy who's using the camera, the directors and everyone, they want to see you nail it because they want to see a performance that's going to be, celebrated and everything. So when you're on set, you have no time to think about your nerves or whatever you might have in your head or issues that you have outside the set. You don't bring those on set. You have to kind of stay within what you need to do, be focused on that, because everyone wants to see you succeed, because everyone wants the production to succeed. Everyone wants the best to happen. So when you go into an audition room as well, remember, try not to be nervous. That's easier said than done, especially when you're starting out. You get into an audition room and you're shaking, you don't know what to do. Just be you and just do what you're being taught. If you have gone through the acting teaching, or just do what you're really good at, because everyone wants to see you do well. There's no one out there with an agenda against you. And the third thing that's really important, and I think not many people like to talk about, is rejection. You got to get really used to rejection. Especially like for me, when I started out in acting, going out and going out and doing auditions, sending self-tapes here and there. You get rejected quite a lot. And that kind of comes back to the point that I was making about sometimes a casting director might just have something in mind that they want to, they think that is what they want for the film, for the character that you're auditioning for. And you might have done a brilliant performance, but it's just not what they're looking for. That doesn't mean you personally aren't a good actor. It just means that you just don't fit what they want at the time. I'll tell you a really quick joke. John Boyega, the black guy who was in Star Wars.
Yes.
John Boyega, of course, he got the role. He's one of the lead actors for Star Wars. I was called to be his double on screen.
Really?
My agent had secured my role as a double. So being a double is, you don't necessarily have any speaking to do or anything, but you're used on set, especially for camera angles. There's certain things that they might need you to walk away from camera or do different things where he's offset to save time and to just kind of give the directors the different views of how things are going to be used. And sometimes doubles end up getting huge parts for different things. So I was called to be his double. And usually when you become a double for a famous actor, you usually get first dibs on any other film set that they get on, because, being a double means you're basically, you try to be a mirror image of that person. So I had the same height, same physical build, as much as he is, I suppose I mirrored him physically. So I was a really good body double for him. And my agent had secured, doing that role. And I was really looking forward to it, because once you become a double, like I say, it could open quite a few doors. We were setting up everything for me to get, go do my fitting. So I'd get to try on the outfits, the costumes and everything for Star Wars. And a couple of hours later, my agent called me back and she said, the casting directors, they had a bit of a chat, and they came back and they said they were not going to take you after they had already confirmed that I was going to come in for fitting and everything already. But they didn't want to take me anymore because I wasn't dark enough. I'm a black guy. I'm not black enough, bro. I'm not black enough. I'm not dark enough. So physically, I'm everything. They could put makeup on me. They could ask me to go find the sun somewhere. They could send me to a sun tanning room to get as black as I need to be, however they needed me. But I wasn't dark enough. And that's to show you how fickle the acting industry is. Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, all these different production industries, they try to, make as many savings as they can to have as many profits, going into the cinemas. And that one hurt me so much. So to answer that question, about, just things not going your way, or everything. It's, it could be as little as that. Your skin complexion, your accent, maybe how you're looking at a certain angle doesn't work. These things come up. And so rejection is something that you have to learn how to face and be able to get through very quickly, because you'll get a lot of no's. But when that yes does come, it's awesome, it's remarkable, and you just need to try to give your best performance, because it could be the performance that could take you wherever you need to go.
I think any young person listening to that, like you said, regardless of whatever field they are in, it doesn't have to be acting, but these lessons are lessons that they can take throughout their lives, in whatever walk of life they are in. And I know for sure my audience appreciated that. So I appreciate it as well.
And I'll say just really quickly, just like with any other thing, just jobs in any other any other aspect, you apply for a job, you don't get it, you keep on applying, you don't get different ones. We like to say back home, that job wasn't for you. The right one will come. And, sometimes, it is the best thing that has happened that you didn't get certain things until you get the right thing for you. So just keep that positivity in mind. It's not about you. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. The right role will come, or the right job will come for you.
Beautiful. Final question. What is next for Alister Albert?
What is next for me? That's a good one. For me, for sure, I've been trying, I've been on this path to wanting to be a full-time, respected, celebrated actor for quite some time. So, I've kind of come out of that space for a little bit because of some of the other things that I do. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I do NBA analysis. I'm the Caribbean's lead basketball analyst on SportsMax Zone. And I've kind of done a lot of television analysis of the NBA basketball for the last four seasons. And that's kind of one of the things that I've done. I've kind of been in talks with different people for analysis where that's concerned. So that's kind of been occupying my time for quite some time. But I've been really wanting to get back to really being on set and being in film for quite some time. And to really get back at it. So what I would really want from me is to be able to get back on set, have a really good, get something that would be, a really perfect role for me, the person who I am, and smash it and get opportunities that would open up for me. So what's next for me, I think, is, losing a little bit of weight. My cheeks have gotten a little fatter. I put on a little bit of weight, drop a little bit of the weight, but kind of keep the confidence that I've always had and put myself back out there, even more so because, yes, I have an agent. Yes, things come up. But, kind of just me actively putting myself out there as well to try to get opportunities. So hopefully in the really near future, there's something that could be, Alister Albert from Saint Lucia in this film, and this is something we could all celebrate as well as an island. To kind of bring that full circle for me, that little boy from Sunbelt who loved watching another Saint Lucian on screen. Probably give someone an opportunity to have that inspiration moment as a kid as well. So that's what's next for me. I think wanting to get back on set and doing something big, because that's what I think I deserve. That's what I think I've always wanted. And that's what I'm going to push for.
And I hope it for you as well.
Thank you.
I can hear the passion in your voice.
Definitely.
And everything that you've said to me, I look forward to it. And let's rebook an interview, man.
Let's do that.
When it does happen, we're going to rebook an interview.
I'll be very happy to do that. You could get in touch. I will definitely say yes. We don't know what the schedules will be like, but I'll definitely
we'll
that time, because I think, it's really important to be able to share these stories and enjoy, the successes of our fellow brothers and sisters from Saint Lucia who are doing things all over the place.
For sure. Alister, to thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
No problem.
You might not feel like you won yet, but I can tell you that you're already a Saint Lucian icon.
Thank you.
Believe it.
Oh, icon is a big word.
You've inspired me.
Yes, thank you.
I am saying it. I am saying it already. You're already an icon.
Thank you. Thank you.
In your space. You're doing amazing things. And I know for sure somebody will see this interview and be inspired.
Thank you.
And that is what this platform is for. So if they're inspired by you, then we've done our job.
We're all game changers in our own right. And if I could definitely be a game changer for this one person to feel really good about what I've said and kind of inspires them, job done. That's all I'm looking for.
Beautiful. All right, bro. Thank you for coming on.
No problem, man. Thank you
Guys,
very much.
This has been yet another episode of the Game Changers podcast. And to thank you for coming on, thank you for coming to listen. Remember to like and subscribe. Game Changers is available wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to and watch Game Changers. Anyhow, as usual, thank you for coming again. And as usual, stay hungry. And I'll see you next time.